Yeah, or maybe even in not modern times. I mean, you go from the first Sugar Bowl, and the next big moment is probably the Garden State Bowl, and I don't know, how big that was to anybody other than Temple. Yeah, it's different. I mean, and if they were 5-2 instead of 7-0, or they don't win the UMass game, or something doesn't go right, it might not be quite as big as it's turned into. But it's like the perfect storm. I mean, the Eagles are off. Notre Dame's here. 3 or 4 months ago, I think this game was bigger to Notre Dame people, to be honest with you, because I'm guessing half the crowd at least is going to be Notre Dame people. But now, the bandwagons being what they are, it's become a Temple thing because there's really nothing else going on this week in Philadelphia. Whether these people will be there next week or do we, what people don't kind of understand is the game against Memphis in 3 weeks is actually bigger, just like the game against Cincinnati after they beat Penn State was bigger. But I understand perception-wise what Penn State represents and what Notre Dame represents. So, yeah, I mean, it's all good fun, and, who knew? It's like,
well, and Mike, that you said something, though, that really resonates is if they win against Notre Dame, obviously you said the bandwagoners, does Temple have it to say that it's going to matter, that the fans are going to come out and that stadium is going to start to see a difference? I mean, that's really what this is about, is trying to get people to go down there on Saturday and make it a Saturday thing, and they haven't been able to do that. Does beating Notre Dame help get them there?
Well, I mean, are 45,000 people going to show up for Connecticut? If they, I mean, it is kind of what it is. They sold out Penn State because it was Penn State, not because it was Temple. You sell out Notre Dame because it's Notre Dame, not because it's Temple. Now, that doesn't mean they wouldn't have had 35,000 people there if no Notre Dame fan bought a ticket. But, at some point you're going to be playing UConn, you're going to be playing South Florida, you're going to be playing Central Florida, you're going to be playing SMU. Well, do people, care about that? I mean, it's funny. I heard a guy call a radio show today, and he was saying he's all in for this, and it's a great thing, and he's going to Dallas next week for the Eagles, and one of the people said, well, you can go, and Temple's playing Friday night at SMU. And he didn't know that. Yeah, he didn't know who they were playing next week because it's just become they're playing Notre Dame this week.
Yeah.
And look, you have to start somewhere. But, I mean, does this mean they're going to start having 40,000 season tickets? I don't think so. And they're going to probably be good next year, I would imagine. But there's no Notre Dame on the schedule at home. There's no Penn State on the schedule at home in the foreseeable future. So, are people going to come to see Charlotte, in September if you're ranked 24th and you're 2-0? And I don't have the answer for that, except to go on past it. I mean, will this make it more interesting than if you're going 4-7 every year? Sure, I would imagine, but I don't think you're going to start seeing people care about this. I don't know if they're ever going to become Philly's team to that degree, unless it's Penn State or Notre Dame in the building. We'll see when they play Memphis in a couple of weeks, because that's a really big game, and Memphis could be ranked and they could be ranked. When that game comes into town, that could have a lot more ramifications on them trying to win their conference title. Obviously they'd like to win this and win the conference title. You want to do it all, but given a choice, if you said to them you can win this game or lose to Memphis and not win the conference, I think they would probably win the conference and put a trophy up. But to most people, this is the Holy Grail. Just like beating Penn State. The only reason the Penn State game was important was because they hadn't done it in 74 years. If they'd beaten Penn State a couple times in the last 10 years, like they probably should have, it would have been nice, but it wouldn't have been like – it was almost like – you're almost celebrating the fact that you hadn't beaten them in 74 years. And Penn State is Penn State. They are the dreaded Nits, but this year's team is – if I had said to you, Notre Dame's beaten Penn State, Cincinnati, and East Carolina this year, you would say what? But that's what Temple's done.
Yeah, well, and
everybody's like, well, okay, we're on board. Okay, I get all that, but it's still a program that's growing. It's still, Matt's done a great job. This team was 2-10 2 years ago.
Well, that's the question, Mike. You in your piece, which was really good, by the way. It says that they wanted to be big time. They just don't know how. They were in the Big East. I was at those Veteran Stadium games. I went to WVU. I would drive to watch WVU play, and there'd be 8,000 people in that place. It was bad. Right. What is the ceiling for them? What can they become? What is the goal, and what's the ceiling?
I mean, I think in this league that they're in, they can be competitive. Now, I don't know how long Matt Rule's going to be there. I don't know what happens if the next guy isn't the right guy. Are they in the ACC 10 years from now? I don't have any of those answers.
Is that something that could be them, though? I mean, because, quite frankly, Rutgers.
But so far in Temple's history, they've never been the team anybody wanted.
Right.
Okay? They weren't the team. They're always the last team to get into anything. They get kicked out of a conference. Nobody gets kicked out of a conference. But the thing is, if you're winning 10 games every year, if they can keep doing that, win 10 games, win the conference, go to a bowl game, will more people care? Sure. That's obvious. But I mean, doing that forever and ever, what happens if you go 6-6 or 7-5? If they go, let's say for the sake of argument, they go to Peach Bowl this year. Let's say they're the team that gets into the New Year's Day Bowl. How many people does Temple take? You tell me. Is it 15,000?
Yeah.
Is it 10,000? Probably 2,000, 25. I don't know what it would be, but that's just Temple. Now, can that change? It's already changed from what it was 20 years ago, but how much can it change in a pro town where you have 5 other universities where maybe the St. Joe and LaSalle people don't really care a whole lot? I don't know that. When you're 7-0, everybody's a Temple fan now.
Yeah, well,
but that's because you're 7-0 and you're ranked 21st. You might not be that every year.
I was there in that Big East years when you would see Temple and Rutgers, and they were just embarrassments. I mean, Rutgers might have been in equal footing. I don't know that they're in the Big Ten because Rutgers football. They're in the Big Ten because of geographics. Can Temple be in a bigger conference based solely on geographics if they have 2 to 3 years success in football?
Don't know. I mean, they've never owned this market before, and the market hasn't changed. It's still the 4th or 5th or 6th largest market in the country. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are years where their basketball team was going to Final Eights a lot, and they couldn't fill McGonigal Hall. So, I don't have those answers.
There's a lot different competition in basketball in a city than football, though, right?
But what I'm trying to say to you is, if you're Temple and you're going to Final Eights and you're a national recognized team, you can't put 4,000 people in a building?
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
I mean, Temple has always been that. They've never – where Villanova is the team that can go to South Philly and play Louisville or play Syracuse and get 20,000 people in the building. Temple can only do that for Duke. So it's just a different – now, does that change as Temple maybe becomes less of a commuter school and they get more students there who are actually living on campus? And that's something that probably takes a while to figure that out. But Temple's always just been that kind of that kind of mentality. And I don't know. Winning obviously has to come. You have to get that first, and they're getting that. But now, how do you sustain that? And I don't think they're going to go back to the days where they had 5,000 people showing up for games. I think they can get 20,000 on a fairly consistent basis. And they might tell you it's 28,000, but I'm just saying. So it is getting better. Can it be to the point where they're getting 40,000? That seems like a stretch, but I've seen it go from almost losing the program to this, so who knows?
Yep, Mike Kern from the Daily News has covered Temple for a long time, and obviously it's a maybe the biggest game in their history. And you look at
maybe.
Well, I'm 38. It's the biggest game they certainly ever have since I saw some really bad games in that building at the Vet. I even saw them play Rutgers at the Link, and there might have been 6,000 people in that place. And I might be being kind, but you always say this is not really a college football area. Everyone just kind of is a pro guy, and it's always hard. But here's this team trying to make this identity. But here's the question, really, moving forward for them. And you mentioned the coach. Does it take the coach to say, you know what, I'm going to be committed? Is that what it would take for this thing to continue to grow? Well,
I mean, I can't see Matt Rule being here for 20 years, if that's what we're talking about. I don't think Matt's looking to leave tomorrow. But let's say, for the sake of argument, they go 12-1, and they're in the New Year's Bowl or something, and maybe somebody offers him a contract he can't refuse. I mean, I don't see him leaving after this year. But if you're asking me 5 years from now, is he going to be there? I'd have to bet no. Just because that's the way this world works. But let's say if Temple were 5-2 right now instead of 7-0, and Oklahoma was coming in 6-1 Oklahoma, would it be what it is?
Nope.
I don't think so.
I don't think if it was 7-0 in Temple against Oklahoma that it's the same. It's Notre Dame.
Right, and I wrote that earlier this week, and so Notre Dame is a big part of all this.
No doubt.
It's the perfect story, and Notre Dame is never going to happen again, at least in the foreseeable future, and neither is Penn State going to happen, because that series is next year. They're playing at Penn State, and after that, Temple's off the schedule because Penn State's playing 9 Big Ten games. They have one less non-conference game. So right now, I think Maryland and Rutgers are coming onto the schedule later on.
Not good enough.
Well, I mean, they're good games to play but it's not Penn State.
Right.
No,
good games to play, but not high profile enough to fill that stadium.
But if they're talking about building a 35,000 on-campus stadium, maybe that's how they see it. Maybe if they see where you get 25 or 30,000 people on a fairly regular basis, which maybe you can get there and it looks like it's filled instead of 25,000 people at the link, maybe that's the ceiling.
Well, that's what Cincinnati's done. I mean, that little Nippert Stadium is tiny out there, but it looks great. Right. It sounds loud. So do you think that's a smart move for them? Should they invest in that?
I don't know. I mean, if you're going to tell me it's going to cost $175 million to build and they're going to be in debt forever, I don't know. If you go in, if you build it, and let's say you're in the ACC 10 years from now, well, you better have a way of expanding it. You better have a way, because you might need a bigger stadium at that point. And then the question becomes, if you have a 35,000-seat stadium and you want to play Notre Dame or Penn State, they ain't coming to the 35,000-seat stadium probably, because you're going to lose revenue, because you could put double that amount. Now, do you go to the link and then do the Eagles say, no, we don't really want to have you here? I mean, the relationship has been a little contentious. So I don't know. I don't have all those answers, and there's so many unknowns going forward. If you're going to, they talk about $100 million, it won't cost $100 million. There is no way in God's world you're building in a union town a 35,000-seat stadium for $100 million. It just ain't happening. So the price tag probably is more along the lines of 150 or upwards. I don't know, but are you willing to make that kind of commitment when you're still trying to pay some things off on campus, and you've got so many things going on campus that are non-sports related? And, I don't know. But I think Temple, the president, the people that are in there now want to do it. Whether they're going to be able to do it, I mean, if you put a gun to my head and said, is it going to happen, I'd probably say yes, because I think they're fairly committed. But they don't have that guy out there that's going to give $50 million. If Lewis Katz was still alive and walked in and some guy told me and said, Lewis Katz laid $50 million on the table, probably get done. But they don't have that. It's not like Auburn. You go around and get 15 different guys to give you $5 million. So and that's always been a problem there, and that's just the way it is. It doesn't mean they can't get it done, but I mean, this could be something you could be paying off for a while. But they're paying the Eagles money to play down in South Philly, and so they're trying to weigh the pros and cons of doing that versus having their own facility. And I think in their minds, they want to do it. Whether they'll be able to do it, but like I said, if you put a gun to my head, I'd say that they're going to try to do it.
Most important part, then, I guess, is Saturday night. They played 2 years ago. Notre Dame won that game. It's this Temple team. That was a young Temple team. Is this Temple team better equipped now?
Oh, they're obviously better equipped now, but maybe some of those young guys on Notre Dame you're talking about a Notre Dame team that's playing its backup running back. They've lost a couple other starters, and it looks like they're a better team than they almost were with the guys they had. I mean, look at it this way. How many guys on Temple were recruited by Notre Dame? Okay? If you ask, take Philadelphia out of the equation and ask people around the country who they think is going to win the game. 9 out of 10 people are going to say Notre Dame.
Yeah, no doubt.
And that's just the way. That's okay. That doesn't mean it wouldn't be the biggest upset in the history of college football, even though some people would look at it that way. They've already won as a 7-point underdog, and they were an underdog last week at East Carolina. This is obviously a different animal, but I don't see like Notre Dame putting a 48-15 on them or something like that. I've actually took Temple in the points because I've taken them all year. I think Temple can hang with them. Do they have enough to beat them? That seems like a little bit of a stretch, but it wouldn't shock me if I was walking out there. It would surprise me. It wouldn't shock me.
All right, Mike Kern, the great story on the Temple football program, where it's been, where it's trying to get to. Read it at Philly.com. Good stuff, Mike. Thanks so much.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Take care.
You got it. Mike Kern, everybody here on the Sports Bash. When we come back, I got my trends, my picks,